we're here with the 73 Camaro, which my son now owns. And you know how when you get a car and it's running 90% there, and you know, you don't really want to mess with it? Well, this car's always run real well. It's got a really strong engine, but it's always had this slight hesitation on idle and has a slight surging on very light loads. And I believe it's down to the distributor, because although the engine's been rebuilt, that's probably the original distributor. And I think it's floating a little bit. And also this particular distributor is not adjustable. So we're going to install this distributor, which is the same one I have in my 57 Chevy. And yeah, it's kind of cool having a clear lens on it. You can see that it's all sparking and everything. But you'll notice that when you have a canister, a vacuum canister on a distributor like this, with a hex on it, it means it's adjustable. Now I think some of the ones without this are adjustable, but in general, if it's got the hex on it, it's adjustable. And you use a, I believe it's a 330 tooth Allen wrench, and then you'll put it in there and it will locate in a set screw. Now we want to bring in the vacuum a little bit sooner on this, so it's at the factory setting, so we're going to turn it in 3 turns. Well, actually that must have been, so that's fully bottomed out now, so I actually want to come back maybe 1 from being bottomed out, so that will bring the vacuum advance in sooner. And on this particular engine, it will like that. It's got a little bit of a cam in it. It will bring our the smoothness of our idle up at idle, and it will make it a little bit more responsive off the line. So what we plan to do is we're going to pull the rotor cap off, and we're going to mark where the rotor is pointing on the distributor, and then we're going to mark the base of it. And by doing that, when we pull it out, we'll be able to put this one in exactly the same position, and basically the car's going to start straight away. Now normally I would put my timing light on and everything and set the timing, but unfortunately this doesn't have a timing mark on it. But because this car's got a quiet exhaust system, it's fairly easy, like old school tuning, is you advance the distributor until the timing where under load your car's just starting to pre-ignition, and then you start backing it off. Now you can actually put it in gear on the driveway with your foot on the brake and just put a bit of a load on the engine, and you can feel it pre-ignition and back it off. So we'll probably tune it like that initially until I can take all the spark plugs out, find top dead center, make a mark on the flywheel, put a pointer on there, and then we can do it with the timing light. But for the time being, that's not a terrible way to tune a car, and you know, I've had a lot of success with that years in the past before I started using timing lights and stuff. So on this particular car, that's what we're going to do today. So anyway, without going more into it, we're going to start dissecting this a little bit, and then we'll start videotaping when we've marked the distributor and slid it in, and show you guys how we do that. And I also like to say I really appreciate everybody who subscribed to our site. That's really awesome. Anyway, let's get into it. So we're in Maximilian's garage here, and this is the old cap which is on the distributor. So I'm just checking the wires out so I know how to put them in on the new one. Okay, a couple of things that you want to do to make this installation really easy is you want to mark the base of a distributor. I don't know if you can really see that there. Let me get an angle. Okay, so I've marked the base of the distributor with some orange chalk and where it goes into the intake manifold. And I've also marked it on the base of the distributor, which on this angle it doesn't look like it lines up, but it does. Also, you'll see a red mark, what I've marked on the rotor here. Hey Max, can you just hold that cap up a little bit for me there? So you'll see I've done a red mark there where the rotor's pointing. So when I put the new distributor in there, I'm going to have the rotor pointing at the same place on that base, and I'm going to have the base located in the same position on the intake manifold. Now by doing that, you eliminate all that problem of not knowing exactly where you've put the distributor in, and it will start straight away, which is obviously a big advantage. And another thing you want to do is, you know, on a lot of guys, they don't have a proper plug like we have on this one. well, we don't have a proper plug, we have 3 wires going in there. So you want to take a photograph so that you know which 3 wires go where without tracing them back. So, you know, we've done that. And now we can go ahead and pull that distributor out and hopefully put the other one in. Okay, so I just want to make people aware is that you're going to have different manifold thicknesses and gaskets which can make the length of how much this goes into your block slightly different. And what you want to avoid, see how there's a little bit of play in the end there? You don't want that pressed up against the block. It means it's too, you know, there's no play in there. In which case you'd have to put some metal shims in there. Don't use washers, they will eventually crush. So you need to put metal shims in there. Sometimes you can buy adjustable ones of these, which is good if you can, and then you can just adjust it correctly. Now, to be able to tell when you put it in, you're going to have some play in it. See the shaft, bottom of the shaft coming up. But even if this is pushed up, you're still going to appear to have some play in here because of where it moves on the springs at the top. But it's a different type of noise. You can just feel that's just a plastic rotor pulling up. But that, you can actually feel the whole weight of the metal shaft. So anyway, be aware that you need some play in this, otherwise you've bottomed out and that is not a good thing. So anyway, let's get back. I'm making another mark here. The more marks you can make, which kind of help you position the new distributor in exactly the right place, the better. So I'm going to have the vacuum canister, I know it's pointing basically there. So between that and the rotor being above the red mark there, or just after it, you know, it'll help me line it up. So we've got the other distributor out, and a quick way to tell if there's any major differences is, you know, put the gasket on there and just have a look to see how it is. And if anything, this one's like, you know, a 32 shorter, which is perfect. So we're not going to have any issues putting that in. And lengthwise, it's going to be good. So we know we're good there. So everything's going according to plan. This is what I'm talking about when you mark the old distributor so you can put the new one in the same way. You see we have the marks here, which is actually line up with that hole there for the screw. So the screw hole is there, the rotor's in the same place, the vacuum canister is pointing on the same angle, and the mark I marked here was in the center of the flat section, which we've marked in the center of the flat section this time so that we can mount it in the car correctly. When you install this, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, but you're going to install it with the rotor actually here.
In a second.
Because as the rotor slides into the engine, it will go like this. And you might have to do a couple of tries to get it lined up correctly. But basically, the rotor is always going to be, you know, 1.5 inches or so behind the mark. And then as the spline goes in, it will turn into that position. So you need to know that. So the funny thing is that when we went to install the new distributor, it actually didn't feel like it was seating perfectly. Like there was maybe a 32th of a gap there. So we took the washer off the original one, which is exactly the same length, we measured it, and we put that back in without the washer, and there's definitely a slight gap there. So it actually did exactly what I told you guys we shouldn't do, and that's make sure you don't install a distributor where it bottoms out. So we're going to have to go and get a couple of shims and get back to this a little bit later so that we can make that sure that that's free floating and not bottoming out when we install the distributor. So that's that then. So we're back with the change in the Camaro distributor, and as I told you, we needed shims. This was just not quite bottoming out. Well, it was bottoming out. So we just need to put maybe a couple of shims in there because we do not want this bottoming out. Anyway, another thing I want to point out is at the bottom of a distributor, you'll see a little tab there. And that's why it's so critical to mark it how it came out. Now, I told you about marking the top of it, and on let me get the new distributor. Right, here's the new distributor. You see where we did the mark there, where it lined up. So that's very important for the timing. Basically, this part can be anywhere you want it to be. As long as that's lined up how the other one came off, that locates to the distributor cap, which goes to, you know, 1 to 8 cylinders. So that makes your timing correct. But the reason why we marked the bottom one, which we did a mark there, is because that locates this tab at the bottom. And that connects to a cog the same as this, which connects to the oil pump down there. And if that's off, it can be a pain getting it in. So you're going to have to like wiggle it to get it in for it to slot down all the way. But it's not really critical where this is from any other perspective, except that you want to locate this. So maybe somebody had put the distributor in where you couldn't get much adjustment on the distributor, and you want to put the distributor in a slightly different position. That's okay, as long as you can get this to locate. And if you can't, you can look down there and get a screwdriver in there, just turn it a little bit, and then you can locate it. But at the end of the day, as long as you've got movement of your distributor, and as long as this lines up with the same point that it did when you pulled it out, you shouldn't have to reset it or anything, and your car should just start straight away, and then you can go straight into your timing. Anyway, let's put a couple of shims on here and get into installing. So we're lowering this down. Now you'll notice that the rotor will move as I push that down, and I locate it into its spot. Okay, so that's slotted in now. Now my mark is here, right opposite this screw. So we've managed to put the distributor in a place where, okay, so we know the timing's approximately here because we marked it before. This obviously gives you a decent amount of movement for advancing and retarding the timing. So we're going to just line that up right by that screw because that's where the other one was. And we're going to put this little thing on here, which isn't really relevant to you because you obviously know how to do that. And we'll tighten that up. Not too tight because we might want to move it when we start doing the timing. And then we're going to put the new cap on there, and then we're going to remove these spark plug wires one by one. We've left them attached to here so we don't have to rework out the firing order and get them in place. We take off them one at a time and work our way around, and we know that will be good, and then we connect our wires up. Okay, so one thing which I forgot all about while doing this changing over distributor is, which most of you won't have this problem, but because I've got an MSD ignition in this, or because Max has got an MSD ignition in this, you can actually change over the regular GM HEI distributor to run with that. So you take these 3 screws out, it's as simple as that. You unplug it and you remove that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this distributor, which is set up for the MSD. They might have done the same thing to this one. And we're just going to unplug this plug here and just take this wire, and we're going to plug these 2 wires into the corresponding green and white wire on that one. And what that little magnetic pickup did on the distributor is it did what this does. So that's why you don't need that anymore. So we're going to go ahead and just swap those over, and then stick our cap on, and hopefully the car starts. If it doesn't, I'll be YouTubing what I did wrong. So while I've got the old distributor in my hand, the whole reason we're doing this is because the car was acting a little bit strange under light cruise and idle, and it was as if the distributor wasn't advancing fast enough, which is caused by your weights and your springs here. Well, if you look at this, this is quite dirty. It could be cleaned up, but actually it's starting to spring back better now because I've actually done this quite a few times. But when I started doing this, these are almost like quite sticky, and you know, you want them to be able to spring back very easily, which is starting to do now. So what we could have done, we could have taken it apart, greased this up, and you know, this may have solved our problem. But it doesn't get away from the fact that we still would have had to have changed this, and because I don't think this is working correctly. This is a vacuum advance. So anyway, we've got a brand new distributor in there, which I've had luck with that make before, and we're going to see how it goes with that. So we'll swap this over to the other distributor, and that's a long screw. That's probably because it was going through one of those that plastic setup that it had before. You've got a green and white wire there, and this wire's green and purple. So I'm obviously going to connect the green wire to the green wire, and then assume, which is never good to assume on cars, but in this case there is only 2 wires, so I'm pretty convinced that this is going to be correct. Can you get the light on here? Okay, so the cap's on, the wire's in, so it's just a simple matter of pulling these off one by one and putting them in the same place on the other one. Might have to go back afterwards and just you know, make sure the wires aren't crossed and stuff. Hey, try it, Sonny Jim. I'm going to stick the idle up until it's warmed up, and then we'll run around. Okay, so we're warming the car up, and like I said earlier in the video, this car hasn't got any timing marks, and we're going to do the timing old school. And the way you generally do that is, and you need a, you can't have a car with a really loud exhaust system because then you can't hear the pre-ignition in. But what you basically do is you put it on a good, you know, non-slippery surface, and you'll put it in drive with your foot on the brake, and you'll slowly start giving it some gas, and you'll advance the timing until you just start hearing some pre-ignition, and then you'll just back it off a couple of degrees, and then that's normally pretty good where it's going to be. And then you test drive it, and when you're going reasonably slow, you make sure it's in 3rd gear, and you give it some gas, you put it under load and see if there's any pre-ignition. So that's what we're going to do now. So go ahead and put it in drive and just put it a little bit under load. A bit more. Okay. So I'm going to advance it a little bit more now. Okay, so there was no pre-ignition there. So I'm going to go ahead and advance it a little bit. Hey, try that again. Do that again. I don't think I heard anything. I think I'm going to have you take it for a test drive and see how it feels. If you're going too fast, it'll just, we don't want it to kick down. We want it to try and stay in 3rd. So, as far as changing out the distributor goes, you know, nothing changes about how we did that. I mean, that's a good way to do that, and that's what the video is about. From the point of view of did it cure our problem, not really. The car runs really great, very fast, but it does have that slight hesitation, which I was pretty sure it was the distributor, but seeing that it's doing basically the same thing, I've got to look at other possibilities, and it could be the carburetor. I don't know, I'm just have to go digest that and see. And I don't think we've removed the spark plugs in a long time, so maybe we should go ahead and change the spark plugs and check the heat range of those as well. Make sure we have a fairly decent hot plug because of all the city driving, well, town driving we do. Anyway, this was the video of how to simply change a distributor and how you can time it without using a timing light and determine if it's pre-ignitioning or not. Not obviously using a timing light is the gold standard. I mean, that's how you should do it. But in this case, we don't have any marks on the damper pulley, and we don't have a pointer on the block. So we need to fix those two problems before we can set the time in with a timing light. But anyway, hope this video was somewhat informative for you. So we just tightened up the distributor. We're pretty happy with where it is for the time being. Like I said, we'll do the time with a timing light down the road. But thinking about what it's doing, and initially I thought it was a problem with the timing not advancing fast enough, and doing the new vacuum canister allowed me to adjust it coming in earlier. But I think what I need to do is actually change the springs on the mechanical advance so that it comes in a little bit sooner, and I'm thinking it's fluctuating just at that point where you're coming onto cruise. So I still think the problem is in the distributor. I just think we need to put some lighter springs on the mechanical advance, and that will probably solve the problem, which is what we'll do.